And we thought that for students it would be important to hear Yiddish in a living, how people actually speak it, and what are they thinking, and just to see the culture they were studying. So we decided to go to Ukraine, and together with actually parallel with our group, there was another group of colleagues and researchers in ethnography from St. Petersburg, with Valery Dymshits, Alla Sokolova, Boris Khaimovich, Alexander Lvov, and other peoples. And we actually, as students, take part both in our expedition to Czernowitz and with their expeditions to Podole. I will try to list the presentation. Yes, these were the students, the team, and among the participants was, for example, Dr. Olga Belova, Svetlana Amosova, Natalia Kireva, Alexander Polyan, whom probably you should know from the Yiddish clubs and studies and all the lessons. Motul Gardon, I hope that you know him very good. He's now a rabbi in Moscow. And other students who are now making their dissertations and many other different interesting stuff, teaching and all this. Yes, I'm sorry. The place where we worked in Czernowitz mostly was the Hesed organization, joint organization Hesed Shoshana, and people who work there help us a lot, and they gathered Yiddish, old Jewish people and asked them to speak with us, to describe their memories, to tell their stories, their life stories, and they were happy to speak with somebody who is interested in Jewish life before the war, during the war, and after the war. And we were a little bit not ready for this work, actually. And now I imagine that if it would be 20 years ago, we would ask another questions. We would ask them differently. We would speak with them. But still, we did what we did. We have some ideas how we should do ethnographic work. We were, of course, a little bit thought about ourselves as like Ansky, doing the field research and looking for Jewish shtetl after the Soviet period. And a little bit we thought it would be similar to the folklore collection of folklore, like people do it in Russia or Ukraine, like ethnolinguistics, ethnology, and folklore studies in Russia, because we have questionnaires like by topics. One person in the expedition asked about holidays, another about family rights, like burial, weddings, circumcision ceremony, bar mitzvah, and so on. Another person would ask only about some folklore, some songs and others. Another about spells and remedies and other stuff. Now we are doing this work absolutely on another basis, but still we find something interesting. And we also looked a little bit to the modern day, nowadays community of Czernowitz Jewry, but not so good as I wish. We worked also with the synagogue and the rabbi. That time it was Noach Kafmatsky. And we worked in the district of Czernowitz with the synagogue of Khotin, and the community, Jewish communities in Sadgara, in Novoselets, and other places around the Czernowitz, now in the district. Czernowitz is divided, probably you know, into the lower town and upper town, and it's like in the Jewish life, it's like a very poor Yiddish language lower side, and the upper Austrian German language Jewry with a high education level on the upper part of the town, but in the end of the 20th century, in the beginning of the 21st century, the difference was not so sure, but still it you may feel it. And when we came to the people in the lower part of the Czernowitz, there was another atmosphere. And we came to the late Austrian or Romanian houses in the Czernowitz in the upper side. We spoke with people who was in the concentration camps or in the war, and it was also part of our interests in the Holocaust story, oral history, and all this. And we were lucky to speak with one of the latest Yiddish writer, Josef Burg. We were in his house in 2009. We spoke also with non-Jewish residents of Czernowitz and Czernowitz district. Usually we spoke with people who lived near the Jewish cemeteries on these territories, and they tell a lot about their neighbors and the Jewish-Christian relationships, mutual relationship, and very interesting stories. The population of Czernowitz, the Jewish population, could be divided into 3 groups. The Czernowitz which we studied, not the Czernowitz, historical Czernowitz, but after the war, Czernowitz was divided into 3 parts. One, it's original local Jews from Czernowitz, and near is Bukovina district. Their native language was German, even not Yiddish, and they were very small number. We spoke with 3 people of this local Czernowitz Jewry. And they a little bit skeptically look to the other Jews who come to Czernowitz from Podolia and Bessarabia, and they talk about them as a kleinstädteldige, very просто Yidden. They were just, they don't know a lot about high German and Jewish culture and Yiddish. Even also there's people from Podolia knew a little bit, and people from Bessarabia knew a lot of tradition because they lived before 1940 in Romania and not was not Soviet at all, but still they speak a little bit different Yiddish, another dialect, and they were not so highly educated, and all these groups a little bit hated one another. But then we come to Czernowitz, all these local differences was not so clear already. And just they say, we were from small towns of Podolia, and people from Jews from Czernowitz say that we are not really Jews, Czernowitz Jews, but then they come a lot of these Jews from Czernowitz who went to immigrated from Soviet Union, and then they left the houses. Jews from Podolia and Bessarabia lived there, and they started to feel themselves like a high educated Jews from Czernowitz, because they started to appreciate all this culture. They went to Jewish theater, which worked till 1884, 88, and they tried to absorb all the Jewish cultures and traditions, and they tried to serve this Jewish life. So they just begin a new Czernowitz Jewry. This is the map. Sure, you know, this is Podolia, this is Bessarabia, this is Bukovina. All these 3 regions are very important for the Jews in Czernowitz. And what we did actually, what we collected was the folklore in Yiddish and ethnographic tradition also. And we just find some very interesting pieces of Jewish culture because we asked people about their children memories. What do they remember from their childhood? We tried to speak with them Yiddish, but we didn't succeed because the students, even if they learned Yiddish in university, it was still not enough to speak quickly with the Yiddish people. And they also said that Russian is more is lighter for them than Yiddish, because they spoke Yiddish many years ago. They could understand everything, but to speak for them is hard. But it happens so that some phrases from Yiddish, some rhymes from children memories, they do remember good. And so they discuss with us their memories. A lot of them connect with holidays. And the most important holiday for them was Pesach, and the children's roles in the Pesach is Firkashes, 4 questions. And they do remember it in Yiddish, not in Hebrew. And this is the example of one of them who pronounced it well in the Yiddish. But I would like to show you the sound of a version of children joke on the Firkashes. It's also could be. This I'll try to put the sound.
Nu verwoesa top een neuer en enkt nicht. En enkt. Dios 2 jaar ne enkt nicht. Verwoesa na galosh Wasser rinnt raus, en na die geesten raus rinnt aan. De Wasser in galosh.
I hope you understand. It's a funny question. It's a joke, and children do remember this also as a question that they have to ask, and that they ask during the Passover. Other holidays were also important, and one of the popular holidays was Purim, as they called it.
De Piremspieler, het is Piremspieler. Zingt men dat zo. Wo zal mir wünschen, dem Bulbus, wo's mir sehnen bei ihm in ois. Gibt es trinken, warm von der schöne Flasch, in se verbassen, a süßen den Tasch. Ante spieren, morgen zois, geht ins Agrivendli mit jemand heraus.
Simchas Torah, also the holiday that people do remember a lot.
На идиш Simchas Torah. И вот тогда, значит, дети ходили, танцевали и пели Simchas Torah опуню, mit dem Fiesal klöpunю.
We started to record video in the later years, since 2007, and not all of our interviews are now recorded properly, but still, what do we have? This is holiday folklore, the songs and questions that people sing and ask when they are young, and what it's their main role. Very popular holiday is Hanukkah, and almost all of our respondents remember Hanukkah Geld, the money that they received. Another big pool for the folklore is children's folklore, and this heroes two texts. One, when you're counting who is leader in the play, there are different versions of this verse. It's very important and very known. It's not only in Czernowitz known, but still we have it a lot. And then your tooth, when you are a child and you lost your tooth, you are saying this mazel and it's also very popular children saying. And then people quarrel in order to make peace. Rigele roises, mir seinen gemein broiges, rigele rig, seinen hover zurich. And we have a video, then Motul Gardon asking two sisters Koifman, and they show him how they play when they were child, when they were kids.
Zemmer, gaan we kreeg. Had ik dat zo bij.
Oh, kent er dan nog eenmaal? Zei het eens goed. Dat besser gedenken.
Oh, dat is ook zo.
Ja.
Rigale, rigale, rooidjes, zemmer gewijn, broodjes. Zemmer, gaan we kreeg. Rigale, rigale, riet, zemmer, gaan we kreeg. Had ik dat zo even is dus had ik niet bij.
No, sorky worky, it's also very important. I think Tsiptso Emerald, this is another story.
Извините, дорожбит. Ципи пеемер, кимчи бирен кемер, лома да пиздаза, а шишало да тазн, коло ги на бен, да пусак да бен, ломер дус и биренц, и флик да ройти
Another joke is about the people who is quarreling one with others, why you put out your nose.
Это как прибаутка, я знаю, как это было. А что наругилась денос, рахала, что наругилась денос, остаругилась денос. Зай, мама, хлей бав денос.
We collected songs, and we find only one person in Czernowitz who liked to sing and sing songs a lot. And her name was Rosa, and she loved the song Rezel, and she write it down with dialect, with accent in Russian letters, but it's Yiddish. And she sings very interesting, rare song. One of them is about Halutzim, people from kibbutz who wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael before the war. And she said that it was her relative who wanted to go to this kibbutz and this Hakshara. And if you allow me, I will put this song on, okay?
Wie bist du gewesen, Tächtel meine Getreide, Tächtel meine Getreide, gewinn der Achschara in Kibbutz Avada, no Mom, es ist gewesen am Echaie, gewinn der Achschara in Kibbutz Avada, no Mom, es ist gewesen am Echaie. Wo hat ihr getrinken, Tächtel meine Getreide, getrinken Tee mit Salz, не было сахара, gerissen Tänzenholz, no Mom, es ist gewesen am Echaie. Wo hat ihr gegessen, Tächtel meine Getreide, gegessen verbrannte Kasche, gekochte Zimasche, no Mom, es ist gewesen am Echaie. Wie sind ihr geschlafen, wie bist du geschlafen, Tächtel meine Getreide, geschlafen verbargt mit Tee, mit Chalutzim zwei, no Mom, es ist gewesen am Echaie.
Well, it really was a mechai to listen how she sing. Another part was food, and then this topic was actually very, very interesting. They do remember a lot of Jewish food, and they quarrel with each other whose gefilte fish is more Jewish and who's not. And because of the mix of tradition from Podolia, Bessarabia, and Bukovina, they have different kind of recipes. But lekech is something they thought they knew. And we asked one woman from Czernowitz, originally from Brichyany, from Bessarabia, show us how she cooked lekech. And she said that we need 20 eggs. Only the 20 eggs could be real lekech. And she showed us, and Mot Gardon asked her to speak in Yiddish what she is doing and what is this. And just a minute.
Ольга Хаймовна, а как это по-еврейски будет вот, называться то, что вы сейчас будете делать, взбивать эти белочки? Ага. А как желточки будут по-еврейски?
Гейлаха.
Гейлах. Пошли Питер, да?
Питер, да, Питер, просто.
А подсолнечное как?
Боймо.
Казань?
Боймо. Na staat zufrieden, dus is het Vitamin und Margiton. Dus muss man umgeschrieben sein.
Ja.
Als du sagst Martin, in Nummer so.
No. Another realm of life, which is very important and very alive in Czernowitz, is a commemoration of dead relatives. Actually, this is the moment from the family rites that they meet a lot. They don't have now more Jewish weddings, although most of children of these people with whom we spoke lived now in Germany or in Israel, and they do have Jewish weddings. But in Czernowitz, they don't see it anytime, and not so many bar mitzvahs and circumcision ceremony, but the burial ceremony they see a lot. And they thought about their relatives, and they pray a lot. And this is a text that they say almost every one of them. Then they came to the Matsevas from their relatives. Loy von bet Gott, Moment tot ich betet, Loy von bet Gott, auf deine Kinder soll sie gesehen, Parnus, and so on. So this is very, very important phrase, and almost all of them, when they spoke what they asked from their relatives, even when the interviews in Russian, this phrase they say in Yiddish, because this is how they turn to their parents, and with parents they spoke Yiddish, so this time they spoke Yiddish in any way. For example, we recorded a person, Abram Yakovlevich Krupnik from Novoselitsa, and he was born in 1918, and he was part of the Hevra Kadisha. Or just he said that he saw how they worked, and he described this.
Была бригада евреев. Мы их назвали хеврите дойшим. Хедойшим, знаете же такое? Элите. На еврейском элите. Когда человек умер, пришли эти хеврите дойшим, имели тарный брейт, это называют, такое доска, обитая цинковой железой. А сзади шел один с горшком, гончарный горшок, и кричал: «Цедака тацел мемувайс». Ну, цедак — это когда помогаешь другим. Тацел спасает, мемувайс — это от смерти.
So this was very important, and another interesting topic was the Hasidic tradition of the blessed coin by a Gitter Yid, by a tzaddik who came to visit the shtetls when they were young. This was usually characteristic from Bessarabian Jews, and this Bessarabian Jew, Zile Koifman, describes me how Stefaneshter Rebbe gave a coin which he blessed, and this became a matbeh, a special coin, an amulet for the person who saved it. Another very important topic is folk medicine and remedies and spells, and the very popular spell is about 3 women. Drei Weiber sitzen auf ein Stein, eine sagt ja, die zweite sagt nein, und die dritte sagt, von wann es gekommen, soll es gehen, This is spell number 1, and we collected it probably 15 times, which is very, very good amount of text which could be collected now. And then it was a conference in 2008 in Czernowitz. I described this custom, and Shura Vaisman came to me afterwards and said that she knew another recipe. And there is an evil eye on the child. You should lick the forehead of your child and say it for food. And this is a version of the same spell, just very shortened one. And it was really very interesting. And I'm glad that I may say it in the conference today. If we will see the results and achievements of our expedition, first of all, it's about 400 hours with the interviews about Jewish tradition, Yiddish, and oral history, and most of our respondents are now passed away and any longer there. But there are the children and the grandchildren. Actually, it's very interesting to speak with them now, because they do remember a lot of this tradition. They say, our grandmother told us, our mother tell us, and this is as if it's still alive. It's a living tradition, we could say it very surely, and people name child according to Jewish tradition because of the names of the relatives, and all other customs and traditions they continue, and they do it as like their grandparents did. And we can say that 3 moments that children memory, Yiddish keywords, and some additional practices that have not lost their actuality are in fact very, very important and can sort through many years and many circumstances. And they do still exist in everyday life and practices of our lives. So thank you for your attention. I would be happy to answer your questions. And to the presentation.
At this point, if you have questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand and we can unmute you, or feel free to put the question in the chat. Go ahead.
So, Barbara Goldstein, I have a question. With regard to other sources of information, we know that Chabad or Orthodox groups have come into Czernowitz, and I was just wondering if they have been helpful to you, or that you have made any contact with people in the group who also may have information. Curious.
Thank you for this question. We tried to interview them and to speak with Mendel, the Chabad rabbi. He was just new in Czernowitz that time. He was trying to set up the Jewishness as he thought about this. It was Chabad level, and no one from our Chesed group could realize why they should do such a strange thing that, for example, the dish, they should wash it in the mikveh or whatever. They don't do it never in their life, and it was the confrontation. But and he spoke only Yiddish, but they don't understand his American Yiddish, and he learned Russia, but it was not good Russian at all, and they couldn't understand him. For them, it was very complicated. But he made a lot of job with the children. He organized Jewish schools and etc. And the children go to Mendel, and then they come back and say, "You don't rub it Purim right way. We should do this way." I said, "No, our mothers did it other ways, and we will do exactly this." So it was very, very complicated. And in Khatin, for example, there were no rabbi, but they received some literature, religious literature in Russian. And in the picture, they just read it and laugh at it. They couldn't understand why you couldn't spit on the Shabbat and don't put something on this. It was out of their mind. So because the understanding of Jewish religion was absolutely not the same as a Chabad leader. But unfortunately, after 2011, we didn't come to the community. I know that now it's a growing group, and they do understand him as a rabbi. And they there are a lot of older people who come to him after the death of Noah. It was a quarrel after his death, and the synagogue goes away. So it was a not interesting story actually. But as usual in the living Jewish communities nowadays, there are 2 or 3 centers of Jewish life in the town. It's Chabad, it's probably something from Orthodox Litvic community or Hasidic community, local version like it was Noach Kaufmansky, and secular joint distribution community, Chesed. And most of our influence goes to Chesed. So only a small amount of them was interested in religious life. And if yes, they go to Noach that way. Now they started to go to Chabad leader.
Thank you. Vielen Dank. Good.
Misha? Okay.
Thank you very much. It was really fascinating and inspiring. And I have a couple of questions regarding the questions that you asked them. And you mentioned that if you were going now, there you would ask different questions. So what is the difference? And maybe a few words about the methodology. Why you mentioned that one person asked about the holidays and the other one asked about the songs. So what was the advantage of this method, and why it didn't work? And if I may, the last question, how you think your expedition correlates with for example, the Ahim project or Leningrad expeditions, etc. And thank you.
Thank you. As I said, it was like the calc from the methodology of Russian expeditions to Russian folklore. And in a common Russian village, there is a woman who knows 11 topics, for example, of traditional culture. And you may ask anyone to her, and she will describe it. How she milked cow, how she made, I don't remember this word, tkань, embroidery making and whatever, how she, what's the spell when your teeth is in pain, and if you need to sell the cow, what should you do? And if you meet a demon in the house or in forest, what should you do, and so on. And you may ask only one topic, for example, very properly ask her about demons, and then somebody else will come to her and ask her about cows. In the Jewish tradition, you have not such a pool of people, and it was wrong because we come to people, probably person knew a lot about holidays, and we ask her about signs and omens and whatever, and they speak who gives you such a putzivate questions. So and it was really understandable because just we couldn't imagine what we would find. But still, sometimes we find some legends and some stories we couldn't imagine if we wouldn't ask. We wouldn't know what they exist. For example, a legend about a spider who bring fire to put a fire to the Beit HaMikdash, to the temple. Then it was taken by Romans and held to the Romans, and the bird, lastechka, helped to put water, to make water that the fire would not exist. And this is a legend we find afterwards in the Kagana, Yiddish folklore, and it's very famous legend, but we have no idea then we asked in the beginning. And with Valera and other Leningrad's people, we worked actually close, very close to. Valeria translated Ansky questionnaire to Russian. It was a huge work. And we started also asking the questions which worked. First, Valeria take one grandmother and ask her all 2,000 questions. And she was exaggerated, and Valeria also. And we decided that we will find the questions that do have answers and ask only them. So it was the compromise, and this was very important. And sometimes we thought that we are speaking something very strange with the people who could describe something else, and it was not interesting for us that time. This is a disadvantage of this method. And now we would ask more about oral history, about the modern day situation, the community, now all this stuff, because I thought this will ask somebody else, because there are a lot of young people, and these elderly people, they remember such things that nobody else wouldn't remember. That's why we asked them traditional and very old. That's what's the difference. Achim made mostly the work about dialects, and they don't care what they are recording. They just wanted to record Yiddish. It would be about anything, about the pot of the flowers on the window, yes? And we were interested exactly on the folklore tradition. And if you don't ask, you don't receive it. If you just ask a person to speak Yiddish, it will be just the conversation, not the interview. That's it.
May I ask my question now?
Yeah.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you. It's very interesting what you did. And also, I wanted to know about numbers. I might have missed if you mentioned. It's interesting to me how many Jews were then when you did your work, how many Jews are left today, if you know, and how many Yiddish-speaking Jews are there today, and are there any young Yiddish-speaking Jews there today, if you know the numbers to understand the...
Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, the situation now, I don't know at all. My friends and colleagues in Czernowitz stopped working this Chesed organization, and I don't know the situation for now. For 2011, it was 1,000 Jews who were both old and young of this organization, Chesed organization, but it was not enough. The Jews were much more than this list from the Chesed. We realized it when we started to ask their friends and neighbors and colleagues and all this. The community was approximately, to my mind, about 3,000 Jews. And we decided that the question, how many Jews are there, is also an ethnographic question, and we are trying to record it when we heard it, because it's really, really important thing. Also, it's one thing we learned after because they all asked us how many Jews in Moscow, how many Jews in Russia, what's happening and all this. So it's really important question. I don't know what's on, unfortunately.
Okay. Anybody else here? Michael Lucan. Michael.
Do you have another question, Michael?
No, thank you. I forgot
Okay.
to.
Oh, okay. Else here?
Great. Anyone else? If not, we are just about at time, and we can thank you very much, Maria, for the presentation.
Yes. Lovely.
We have one more question.
Yes.
I had one question. The one lady who wrote the song lyrics down, but she had transliterated them into Cyrillic. Were there any of the older people who actually wrote Yiddish in the Oisius?
You see a person, 1918 year born, who said Kaddish. He know how to read Yiddish letters.
Yeah,
And
it was in the Chaver Kadisha.
Yeah. and there were some old people in Minyan in the synagogue who knew. Actually, it was interesting. We asked a 100-year-old person, what do he know, remember, and all this. And he was Shoichet in Hatin, and now he lived in Czernowitz. And the rabbi described that once there was no electricity in the Czernowitz, and they were reading Torah, and he was in the bima, and he should read. And it was very bad icing, he couldn't read. But then the light was gone. He just started by head to read Torah from his memory. It was so easy for him, and nobody just couldn't understand what happened. But he remembered. This is very old.
It seems only the men.
Yeah. Women just remember it, how it pronounced, and they knew it, but could realize, but don't know how to write it in Hebrew letters.
Okay, thank you. Shane, I'm done.